So it feels good to be in a little cooler weather. So I have not told my wife how cool it is here today. She would kill me. So I want to take about an hour to quickly kind of go over who iHart is and give you an idea of how this system works. And anybody that wants to stay longer than that, we can get more in depth into things you want to talk about. But I want to quickly kind of give you an idea of who iHart is and then show you how the system works. What I've got here today is really what you would see in the precinct, okay? We're not really going to talk about absentee or building ballots and counting and software and all of that. Mainly we're going to stick to the precinct-based part of the election cycle, and then if you deem us worthy to come back, we can get further into the software and how all that works. I've got a little PowerPoint. It's more to keep me on focus of what we want to talk about today than it is for you guys to see. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but I'll explain what's on the slide. You know, we knew this change was coming. You know, the powers and the articles were starting to come out about voting and the age of voting systems getting older. And I don't want to say failing voting systems, because actually the voting systems are still working pretty well across the country. What's really hard for us as vendors is to get all the parts and pieces that still go with that voting system. So we have to have everything federally certified. We have to have everything state certified. When we make a change to a voting system, if we want to just change out this type screen or this ballot box, we have to send that all back through federal certification, and that can get very costly. So some of the things is really on the back end. Like, we build our ballots now with our older system in Windows 2000. So trying to find computers that work on Windows 2000 is really hard. Trying to find peripherals, parts and pieces that work with those computers are really hard to find. So that's some of the things that are really driving, you know, the change in voting equipment. Does that make sense? The other big issue is security. People are very concerned, you know, about the recent hackings that have gone on. All the systems that are out there currently in the market were built around 1990 to 1995. That's when those systems started being implemented and put into place. So it's time for a change security-wise, and then it's also time for an upgrade in equipment. So a little bit about iHart and who we are. So we are in 18 states currently. All the states that you see in blue are all the states that we are currently working in. All the states where you see stars are where this system is currently being deployed. So we have our old legacy system, which is called either the eScan or the eSlate, and then what you're seeing here today is the Verity system. All the systems that we have here in Pennsylvania are our older equipment, either an eScan or an eSlate. I'm going to skip that. So some of the Pennsylvania counts that we're currently working, we do Lancaster County, Fayette County, Bedford County, Blair County. They have kind of a mix. Lancaster County is a pure paper-based system, which is kind of what we're showing you here today. They walk into the precinct, they get a paper ballot, folks fill in the box, and then they run it through a scanner just like this. Fayette is kind of a mix. They have paper ballots and they have electronic voting. So DREs, just like you guys have here. So you get to kind of go in and you get to pick paper or plastic when you go into Fayette County. Bedford County is a paper county, and then Blair County is a pure DRE county. So just like you guys at the precinct, folks are walking in, voting on a tablet type system and casting a vote. Now, Delaware and the city of Pennsylvania, they use those big giant Danaher machines, but they use our absentee solution. So we create paper ballots for them to mail out, and then it comes back and they use our system to count those ballots. So, you know, a big part of this changeover for you guys is really change management, okay? all the vendors that you're looking at, we all know how to run elections. All of our equipment works, but it really comes down to how are you guys going to change from the system that you currently have to a new type of system. As you know, there is a giant push back to paper. No one is going to be able to buy any longer a DRE machine like you guys have now, where a vote is cast, but there's not a paper record. So everyone in the state of Pennsylvania that's on a DRE is going to have a totally different type system, right? So there's two parts to an election. It's the equipment, but really the biggest part of the election is the process of the election. How do you guys run your system? How do you work with the system? How do you work with all the poll workers? How do you train? How do you get information out to the public? That's really where the rubber meets the road, and those are the kind of decisions and thought processes that you need to kind of be thinking about when you see these demonstrations. And I know I'm first, so hopefully we'll get a lot of questions answered, or at least you'll start thinking of a lot of questions maybe for the other guys. But that's kind of where I think your mind should be, not so much on how does this exact equipment work compared to my competitors, but how does it fit into what we do here in Lebanon County, right? What are our processes? Especially as poll workers, you guys are kind of used to a certain way of doing things. Those things are going to change a little bit. So what are those processes, right? So I say all that, and then I talk about customer satisfaction. We do a survey at the end of every year to our customers to say, how are we doing? Let's check in with you. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And we have been rated at 95% as excellent or above average. And we're very proud of that fact. So we're working with our customers and we're getting the job done. What's really good to notice is we've had a great number of new customers. And in this industry, there's no new counties, right? So every customer we get is really us going in and replacing a former vendor, okay? So of those customers the last 3 years, we've gotten 100% rating with our customer satisfaction of them saying, yes, we're getting better service from Hart than what we got from our previous vendor. So we're very excited about that. And when you talk about that, that's really, you know, going in there and acceptance testing, training of the poll workers, training of the staff to make sure they understand how to use the system, deployment of the system. It's really all that process. No one's grading us on whether our machine is great, right? They're grading us on how we perform as a company. So what I'm going to show you today, it's a true paper ballot system. And since I am first, I'll give you, hopefully this isn't, you guys are going to kind of learn this as you go, but since I'm first, there's really a couple systems types that you guys are going to look at over the next month. First one's a true paper ballot system, which I'm showing you today. You're going to walk into the precinct, the poll workers are going to hand a voter a paper ballot, they're going to mark it with a pen, and then they're going to take it to a scanner like this and run it through the scanner, okay? The second is what they call a hybrid solution, okay? So you guys have DREs now, so imagine you're voting on your DRE, but instead of hitting cast ballot, what it does is it spits out a summary of that ballot, okay, with all your vote choices, and then you take that card and then you walk it to a scanner and put it into the scanner, okay? So it's kind of like a pen for a voter to use. Does that make sense? And then the third type that I think you'll see is what they call a DRE with what they call a VVPAT. It's a voter verifiable paper trail for the voter. So you would vote just like you do now on your iVotronics, but when you hit cast ballot, on the side maybe of the system, a printout or summary would print on paper of how you voted, and then you would say, yes, that printout is how I wanted to vote. Then you would hit cast ballot. Does that make sense? So those are kind of the three types of systems that I think you'll see over the coming weeks. That said, we're showing you a true paper-based solution. And what does a paper-based solution provide for you? It's really the most cost-effective system. You're giving each voter a paper and pen. It's the least cost-wise for a voter to vote. Whereas if you're on a hybrid system, that's a $5,000 pen, right? That's going to print out a ballot. This is the most cost-effective. It has the least amount of equipment that you need to put in the precinct. You have a scanner, and then you have an ADA device. Pretend like you don't see this right here. We'll talk about this later. All right, but you have this device here, and this device with the printer is what you have. So, most cost-effective, least amount of equipment that you'll have to buy. That also means less maintenance cost as you go through the process, and it also means it's easier to deploy and store. Okay. And then we consider ourselves a world-class election provider. And those are the things we'll kind of run through real quick. So here's kind of where we are now. We have electronic versus the paper solution. Electronic, which you guys have now, I think is a great, great system. People have just lost confidence in that type system, okay? You have no ballot printing, which is really awesome. You have less cost, ongoing cost. You have accessibility. Every voter can vote on that machine. You don't have to send a voter to a separate type machine if they can't use a pen and paper. Those are nice. And then you have ballot flexibility. You can load every type of ballot onto your DREs that you have now, and a voter can access this ballot. Really important for more non-precinct based voting, early voting, absentee in person, which I know you guys are not into yet, but as that comes, it's great. But then on the paper side, what's great about paper is it's got the highest voter confidence. Everyone wants to go back to paper, and they love that paper ballot. They love the fact that whenever a recount happens, they're recounting my actual ballot. Not a summary of my ballot, not an electronic digital form of my ballot, but my actual ballot. It is the lowest capital cost. As we said before, it's the least amount of machines that you have to buy, and you're voting on pen and paper rather than kind of an expensive pen. And then you have uniform ballots. So today, you guys have, for your voters that go to the precinct, they vote on a DRE. For your voters that vote absentee, they vote on paper, right? In a true paper-based system, this is the same ballot that's going to go to the precinct. This is the exact same ballot that's going to go to a voter that's voting by mail. Okay, so it's a uniform ballot across all voting. And then you kind of have the hybrid that's in the middle, and we kind of consider that really the worst of both worlds. Okay, it has the most equipment, it has the highest cost, it really limits, you're limited at the polls, kind of like you are the DREs. A person can't vote if you have 3 DREs in your precinct and you have 3 voters in the precinct on that DRE. Everyone has to wait until they're finished. With a paper ballot, what's really nice is you can just hand out as much paper as you can get through the process, right? They can vote on the wall, they can vote on a table, they can vote at the privacy screens however they want, but you're not limited to how many machines you have in the precinct with a paper ballot, which is a nice feature. And then, as we talked about before, uniform ballots. Let's kind of skip through that. And all right, we're going to close that now, and we're going to get to the system. Any questions on iHart and kind of what you guys are going to see? Any questions about the market? Yes.
I have about 5 questions that I'd like to get answers to.
Okay.
And first of all, at what point was your electronic machine certified, or has it not been certified by the state?
This machine here?
You're saying sample paper ballots there.
Right. Our electronic version, I think that was certified probably 2002.
Then why would they have said that it wasn't certified when we were in Harrisburg?
What they've said now is that no system certified before 2018 is valid for you to purchase. So we are not decertified in a sense that people that currently have it can't use it. We're decertified in the fact that it is not an option for you to buy.
So
Now,
the reason the paper is being suggested is because you don't have a certified electronic?
Correct. Correct. We do not have a hybrid system or a VVPAT system.
Okay.
Our electronic today is like what you guys have. It doesn't have a paper trail.
And then my next question is, at the Harrisburg meeting or display in April, I was told that there's a 2-hour battery life. Was that on this system, that system, or that, or all three?
All three. So
that's the shortest. Is that the longest battery life you can get?
well, let's talk about what it's a 2-hour battery life if it's in constant use. So if someone is just feeding ballots through there nonstop, it's a 2-hour battery life. And that's what we have to quote to is how long the battery life is. What's nice about it, and I'll show it to you when we kind of get through the process, is it's a hot swappable battery. So if you have a situation where you do have a precinct or a couple of precincts that have lost power, we can hot swap that battery during the election cycle without having to take the machine down or replace the machine.
All right.
But to answer your question, it is a 2-hour battery
All right.
life.
And then I guess my final question is that I was also told that Windows 7 Embedded was used, but that's not applicable with this scanner. Is that correct?
It is. This is Windows 7 Embedded. That's what the system runs on.
Okay. And what is the difference between Windows 7 and Windows 7 Embedded in layman's terms?
Layman's terms is Windows 7 Embedded is we own that license. So they sell us the Windows 7 Embedded license, and it cannot be changed. So if you think of Windows 10 or any Windows you've had now, and you get pop-ups that say it's time to upgrade to the next one, sometimes you don't even get an option to do some of the security features when they say we're doing a security download. That is not possible with Windows 7 Embedded. It is a solid state operating system that cannot be changed. I think is the best way I can say it. To where a Windows 10 is constantly having updates and upgrades and security things to it. The only way that anything can be changed on here is if we change the entire operating system. And that can only be done by us through Microsoft and licensing.
And for storage, you said that it would be less to store.
Correct.
However, we also have to store the paper and the ballots.
True.
And so that volume of paper is going to be a lot greater than the size of that machine.
True. True.
And B, when we have the ballots coming in, we have to get them printed, and we need lead time, and there are often court cases.
Right.
And we run up against deadlines and timelines, and there's not enough time to get printing, and many of the ballots are different. For instance, this last election, there were committee people in each precinct that were different.
Right.
So the printing is not just the same ballot overall that you can do a mass printing. Each one has to be customized.
Correct.
So there are disadvantages to paper as well as perceived advantages.
Sure. Paper is paper. I agree. It is. When you guys went to the D, I don't know what were you guys on before the DRE? Do y'all remember?
Mechanicals.
Lever machine. Okay. So it's not really applicable. So a lot of people went from paper to electronic. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about the electronic system you have is you're right. We've got to do an update. We can easily get that done. Now you still have to go to each individual machine and do the update. It's not connected to the internet where you can do it all at one time. But those are definitely some nice features that go along with an electronic system. But you're going to end up with paper. As far as the storage goes, you're going to end up with paper no matter what. Whether it's a true paper system, whether you're getting it from a hybrid, or whether you're getting it from a VVPAT, you're still going to have to store that paper. Now there is all of our systems that you're going to see, all 5 competitors, all 5 of us, we're all digital now. We're not, optical scan is kind of what's used and that's what people are used to, but this is actually a digital scanner. When we scan it through there, we're actually taking a picture of that ballot and we can store that image. So there is a lot of talk, and You guys have been in elections long enough to know that that's a really slow process. But there is a lot of talk to saying, okay, now we have a mandatory 2 years of storage of those ballots. How can we cut that back since we now have all of those ballots digitally stored? You know, we have the actual images of the ballots. So I certainly wouldn't tell you that that's going to change by the time you purchase, but over time, I think there will be some laws put in place where you don't have to store it quite as long, for sure.
My final question is really one of verification. It's only a 1-year warranty. You had the longest warranty the first round of machines.
Okay.
And you actually came out in the lead of mine except for the dial.
Right.
But this time it's down to 1 year?
It's a 1 year, we do a 1 year manufacturer's warranty, and we can negotiate any extension you want to do from there. It really goes to how do you want to do your costs. So our previous system, if you had to change a scanner head or get into the motherboard, you really had to send that back to us because it was kind of a process to do that. It was underneath something, behind some wires. The system that I'm showing you today is there's 5 screws here that allow you to get in and do some of your own maintenance. So to that, we are not requiring customers to have a hardware maintenance contract with us. Previously we did. We said you needed to have a hardware maintenance contract, which was, you know, $100 a system. Now we're giving you the option that you do not have to have a maintenance contract. And that kind of goes to warranty as well. If you don't want to carry a 5-year warranty, you don't have to carry. So it's really just an option, but we're happy to extend that warranty if you want it. And to be honest, if you know, we drop the warranty, we can drop the cost to you. If we add in the 5-year warranty, we would have added up the cost to you, right? So we would have hidden the cost in there in the price of the unit. So, yes.
Is there an estimate, I'm sure you would have one, of how many scanners you need in relationship to the number of electronic machines we presently have in a precinct?
Yeah, so with the scanner, which is really nice, it takes about 3 seconds to scan a ballot. So you only need 1 scanner per precinct. I don't think there's, what would be your largest precinct? Is it over 5,000 registered voters?
4,000, just over 4,000 registered voters.
Just over 4,000, and these are kind of rated to say 4,000 registered voters is about where you need to think, do we need a second scanner?
Okay.
But no, it's really 1 scanner per precinct, and then 1 ADA device per precinct. We can actually do this by polling location if you wanted to do that, but that may mean some kind of reconfiguring of how you do things, and we can talk about that.
And just for
That down the road.
clarification,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what system we go with, we are going to have to store paper ballots of one form or another. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct. And you're going to be doing recounts off paper in one form or another.
It's just that a lot of the printouts are much smaller than these, so they would take up less space.
Sure, sure. No, I agree with that. That's something to think about.
Lawrence?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just go back to the embedded software.
Yeah.
Was that done in an effort, you essentially locked in the software.
Correct.
So was that done for procurement and production purposes, or was that to insulate it from ever being accessed for updates or anything like that, so that you just
Yes,
sort of keep
really for both. Really for security reasons, that no one else knows how our Windows 7 embedded works, right? It's not out there, you know, everyone knows how to get into Windows 10 and do whatever with. Windows 7 embedded is our version of Windows 7 that we use, okay, that we work with Microsoft to build. The other factor is longevity. So, you know, Windows XP, Windows 98, those are all gone. They continue to support embedded because it's a single function type software. Does that make sense? So we know we have a 15-year life cycle on our Windows 7 embedded that we don't have to change it. That's the other major factor.
So there's never a need or anything to go in and fix a bug.
Correct. Not in the operating system, definitely not.
Not like yearly updates or anything like that?
Correct, no. The operating system will remain the operating system for the entire life of the system. Now, some of the software that we use to enhance it and run, and give you the options on how to vote, those things can change, but not the actual operating system.
Lawrence?
Yeah.
On the certification, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and I'm understanding this correctly. So when we were at the DRS vendor demonstrations, they had said there was only one vendor that was certified with the new 2018 mandates coming down from the Department of State.
Right.
Now, does that mean that you will be going, if I'm understanding this correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, you will have to still go through the certification process with your current system that you have?
Correct.
And you're in that process now?
Correct.
So you are one of the 5 vendors that, the way I'm understanding, the department has told us is going through the process. 1 is complete. The other 4 have to go through it and finish it. But
Yes.
this is the product that you have presented to the department to be certified, correct?
Correct. And it's
that's because of-
federally certified. It's just not state
And it's
certified.
because of the fact that they have added the paper, that we now must have a paper backup, and then also the audit function that you talked
Yes.
about with recount.
Yes.
I kind of consider that audit, I guess, but
Right.
that feature. So that's what you're basically going through at this point. Do you have a time frame of any idea of when you might be through that certification?
We're
process?
expecting end of 3rd quarter, early 4th quarter of 2018.
Okay, so this year. That's
Just kind of part of the process, yeah. So now, we could take our current system and send it through certification, but we're not selling that system anymore.
right.
Does that make sense?
Is that
Yeah,
when you
we're not
say the current-
manufacturing it
Is that what
anymore.
Lancaster's using?
Right,
Okay.
right.
So if they're looking at, so they would have to upgrade, I guess, to something like
Correct.
this if they want
Yes.
to be
Yeah.
certified. Okay.
Yeah, so all our current customers will not be able to use their equipment. Really across all of Pennsylvania, nobody can use the current equipment that they have past the deadline set by the
And you said Lancaster, they're paper-based, but they right now have a DRE, if I'm understanding, for their ADA.
for ADA,
So that they
correct.
would have to resort to, I guess, the setup you'll show us today.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
And
Yes.
you're saying you won't have, like, one machine would be enough for the 4,000?
Correct. So,
I just-
think about your line.
I can't
Think
do
about
that.
your lines, okay?
I am.
Right. It takes you how long to check in a vote?
Well, we have 4 books going.
Right.
So we.
Minute and a half?
A little less than, a
30,
minute,
40
let's say
seconds?
a minute.
Okay. So then you have time in the booth, right? Which is, so you got them checked in, you now give them a piece of paper, they're gonna move to the voting booth. No wait, they can go to any vote, they're on paper
Well,
now.
they have to wait
So-
from the time they sign in until they can get into a machine. And
Yeah, we have
I
2
have-
different
Well, now they
and
do.
I have 10
Right.
machines.
Right, now they do, but on paper, you'll be able to give them that ballot right there, and they can start the voting
We're
process.
not voting at a machine.
They're not voting at a
Right,
machine.
but they're
So-
gonna have to go somewhere.
They'll
to
have
get
to have someplace to
Someplace
write
to, yeah.
Right, so let's just think about that process. I mean, to put it in the best terms, how many times do you have, if you have 10 machines, how many times do you have 5 people hitting that cast button at the same time?
I can have that happen.
Sure, I definitely know it could happen, but it's not common. You usually have people coming in and cycle through. Some people take 3 minutes at the booth, some people take 10. There's a whole process to it. So once you're done with the voting, we'll show it to you. It may make more sense once we go through it, but they're only going to be doing 3 seconds, 3 to 4 seconds here at this unit, and then they're moving on. So now, what do you consider a line? If you have 4 or 5 people waiting, is that a line? You may have people checking in, you sometimes have what?
I can have.
30,
I
40
can
people
have-
waiting? You won't have 30, 40 people waiting here because you've already thinned them out by going through the process. By checking them in and going through the paper ballot. Now, if you want to add more, you're welcome to add more.
I just,
Um,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think once we see how long the process takes,
Takes,
and
that
then we
was-
can evaluate
from there.
what our registered voters are in precincts, I think we can then make that determination.
Yeah.
What would be the best way, like if it would be two at the higher, or if we need to maybe not have as many voters at a precinct type of deal.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
Other thing.
so.
yes.
I do have another question on this scanner. Is this something that prints the electronics to the hard drive with a backup to an SD card? Is it hooked to the internet or what?
Let's talk about that. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go into the demonstration? Any more hard questions? Why don't we go in the demonstration, and then that'll kind of maybe clear up some questions you have. But to your point, and I should have got it. So let's just take it. We have some poll workers here, right? So at the elections office, you're going to create your ballot, or we can create your ballot for you, however you want to do it. But in the end, your election goes on this V drive. Okay, this is a USB drive. You're going to create one USB card for every scanner you have, so that'd be a minimum of 55, and then you're going to create one for every ADA unit you have, so that's another 55. They're all identical, and it carries all the election information for the entire election. Okay, so when you first put this into, I'm going to show you, it goes right in this little hatch right here. Work my key correctly. Goes right in this little hatch here, and y'all can see that when you come up. It just sticks into there. And when you first put it in there, it's going to say, okay, I've got a new election. This is primary 2018. And you're going to say, yep, that's the election that I want. This is all done, by the way, at the warehouse, okay? This would all be done by your department here at the
So it
warehouse.
wouldn't have to be done on election day. You could do it
Correct.
ahead of time.
Correct, yeah. This would be as soon as your election's set, you can start this process, okay? So this is what we call predefining. We're predefining the machines before they go out to the precincts. So then, yes, this is the election that I want. It's going to start loading the election onto the system. Once it's loaded, it's going to come up and say, where am I going? And basically what that's asking is, which precinct am I going to? Which voting location, okay? We do everything by voting locations. So precincts roll into a voting location. For you guys, you have one precinct equals one voting location.
That's great.
You do have the flexibility if over time you wanted to start doing 2 precincts, 3 precincts at one location. You could add those 2 precincts, 3 precincts, put it all on here, and they'd be able to accept ballots for all 3 of those precincts. Does that make sense?
Is there a limit?
No, there's not a limit. Yeah. So you could actually set it
If
up.
they ever go to central, if they ever had vote centers,
Yes.
that would be why I'm asking.
Yes. So when you could also set it up to say, yes, this is a vote center, and then it would accept every ballot for the entire county.
Okay.
Okay. But you're going to predefine and say, okay, this is going to St. Michael's Church. And then you put in, there's probably a code that you have for St. Michael's Church, you put that in. Then it will predefine the system. So now the only ballots that it's going to accept are for St. Michael's Church. Okay. You close it up, you put it on the rack, make sure it goes on the right truck to get to St. Michael's, and then you move on to the next system and predefine all those. Does that make sense? So on election day, poll workers, you're going to come in and you're going to see this box. You're going to see the ballot box. This is actually a collapsible ballot box. It folds to about this size. Okay, we'll show you that at the end. Great for storage, great for transportation. You no longer have to rent giant trucks to deliver all these machines. You can do it in small vans, cars, however you want to deliver it, okay? Because you don't have to have that big box on wheels or all that electronic equipment. And then you're going to do the same thing with this device. You're going to predefine this so it knows which polling place it's going to, okay? So, you open the polls. You're going to have an open polls password. It'll be the same across the entire county. You do an open polls password. and then you get to this screen here, and it's ready to accept ballots. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? It's kind of a quick version of how we got from here to there, but yes.
I'm not sure if that's pulled out or that remains in the machine.
It would remain in the machine. It would remain in the machine.
And is
for
that
life
the
of
only
machine.
copy, or does it also get printed to a hard drive or an alternate location?
Yeah, so everything that gets scanned, it will put one cast vote record on this V drive. It will store it on actual solid state memory on the device. And then you have your paper ballot. So you have 3 locations where that ballot's stored. If this were to break or be unreadable for some reason or get pulled out when it shouldn't have, then you could go back to the device and pull all the cast vote records off of there. And then you also have the ballots. So now you have a voter come in. We're set up. We've opened our polls. This will give you a 0 report in the morning. You guys can decide how many of those you need to print, whatever that process is that you currently do. It will print from here, show you that no votes have been put on the system. You have to record that, put that with all your paperwork, right? So now it's kind of down to the voting process. So you would check in a voter the same way you always do. And y'all don't use poll books now, correct?
We use paper. We don't
Paper.
have electronic.
Okay. Do you think you're going to poll books as this part, or would that be?
If you're asking me, I
Second
would
part.
love to have electronic poll books, but right now we have paper poll books.
Okay. So that process is not going to change. You're going to check a voter in the same way you do now. Okay. But instead of walking them to the machine with your PEB and putting a ballot onto that machine, you are going to hand them this ballot, and then they're going to walk to a privacy booth. Kind of like the old punch card booths. Do you remember those? Just little stand-ups. They can just somewhere to vote. You can actually set up tables and have kind of cardboard screens there for privacy if you wanted to do that. So you got a couple different options of how you want to set up that precinct. Okay. And we always say you probably want some clipboards handy in case those are full. You can always just hand a ballot and a clipboard, and a voter can do it on his knee. They can do it on the wall. That's for when the precinct gets very busy. Okay. So you make your votes. You can see here for us. I should have handed some of these out. I apologize. I'll do that in a minute. We're a fill in the box. We say in the instructions, fill in the box completely. You don't want to give voters too many options, but really, all we need is there's 300 pixels inside here. We need 25 pixels connected. So it's going to read a check, it's going to read an X, it's going to read scribble. Okay? Yes?
What happens if they mark something and they didn't want that?
So that's a paper issue. So if they do that, then they're going to need to go back and get a new ballot. You spoil that ballot and reissue them another ballot. And there's a process to do that. Right? So you go through, they mark it, they send it through. It can read backwards, forwards, upside down. Right now what it's doing is reading that ballot. If everything's correct on the ballot, you see the American flag, and it's creating cast vote records, okay? Puts one on the V drive like we talked about, puts one on the actual device, and then obviously it drops down into the ballot box. Yes?
Is there a way of locking, putting that cover back over the V drive so no one can pull it out?
Oh, yes, yes. During the day, this would be closed.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be closed, and there's actually a little through put here where you'd actually have a election seal on it as well. Yeah, this is valuable, non-tamper-proof type stuff here, so we would have an election seal on that. And then we'll talk about how we get the key out at the end of the night and what we do. Yes?
Is the key that you opened that with the same on every machine, or is every machine different?
Every machine gets the same. The key is the same for every machine. They're mastered together.
Are the ballots numbered?
It depends what you are considering numbered. So, yes, what we have, so let's talk about the ballot, all right? So you guys were lever, so you're not used to the old paper ballots. So the old paper ballots were what they call optical scan, okay? And what they did is they had these timing marks. Have you ever seen the paper ballots that have a little black, or even the Scantron that you use for testing that has those little black marks all up and down the side of the paper? So what those black marks do is they tell the machine when to send down a ray of light, basically. And on an optical scan ballot, if your box is filled in, that ray of light hits the box, and if it's colored in, it does not reflect back up. If it's not colored in, it hits the white paper, it goes back up, and it says, okay, I don't have a vote. So it was real important that those timing marks were exactly printed perfectly. If a timing mark was off, that means that that light was going to shoot down to a different part of the ballot, okay? Very costly to print. You had a lot of printing mistakes. Those days are gone. Now we're talking a purely digital ballot. So what we have here are barcodes. Inside the barcodes, it tells us what precinct this ballot is for. It tells us if we have any splits, what split it should be. But it also tells us where these boxes are, and then the system is actually reading pixel density inside these boxes, okay? If this is printed a little bit skewed, where these, let's just say it's kind of just a little sideways, as long as the system can read the barcodes, then it's going to be able to read the entire ballot, okay? Does that make sense? This is 28-pound paper. It's a little heavier than copy paper, but it's a pretty light paper. So kind of to your storage and weight issue, this is the lightest paper I think that anybody uses, which is very nice. Yes?
Can we use a local printer to print these?
Definitely, definitely. I think everybody, we don't print for any of our Pennsylvania customers. So, and we actually don't have a printing facility with iHart. We use a third-party printer if someone wants to print through us anyhow. So yes, you can use any printer you would like for printing ballots. And we would help them through that process if they have never done it before or want to understand how we do it. We're really just giving them PDF files for the actual ballot. Now, to your, who asked a question about numbered ballots? So, the ballots are, they do have a unique identifier on the ballot, okay? So, the unique identifier is a random number. It's not in order. So, first person comes in, may get 1, the next person's not going to get 2. They're going to get a different unique identifier. You can hide the unique identifier in the barcode, or you can actually have it printed. We have it printed on the ballot here. The unique identifier is actually the last digit of this number. So what that allows us to do is this makes it now an intelligent ballot. So if somebody were to somehow walk out of the precinct and go and scan this ballot or copy this ballot and bring it back in, it's not going to read this ballot twice. It will only read the first one with that unique identifier. Does that make sense? So it makes it an intelligent ballot. That is very, very helpful. In the precinct, it's not as big an issue because you have a lot of control. Poll workers have a lot of control of that ballots. But when you're talking absentee ballots, to make sure that you don't rescan a whole batch that you've already scanned, it becomes a very nice feature to have. Now, what it also allows us to do is there's a big, what is it? So there's a big push for audits on our systems now. Limiting, God, what's the term? Something limiting audits. I've lost it. It'll come back. So basically it's a way to audit the system. So with this unique identifier, we can tie back the paper ballot to the image that we store on the device. Okay? Risk limiting audits. I knew it was coming to me. So what's very unique about, what's great about that is if there's any worries that, hey, this is how my ballot was voted, but I don't know how it was counted, you were able to go back and do limited audits to say, okay, here's the image, how it was, here's the cast vote record and the image, and we can tie it back and find the actual ballot. Does that make sense? So there would be no confusion over how the scanner read the ballot.
And that's
Right.
part of the whole software package, I'm
Right, part of the whole software package started. And
And that doesn't violate someone's privacy?
it does not, because the unique identifier is never recorded anywhere. So when you hand somebody a ballot, you're not recording that unique identifier back to that voter.
Does it record it as to the sequence that it was submitted?
No, totally random. Totally random. So, and another thing is something that's nice with the software, and I'm not sure how it does it, some formula, but let's just say you put 10 ballots in there, and then you know, you've seen what those 10 votes are now by reading the key or reading the drive. It's not in the same order that the ballots fell in. We randomize the cast vote records as we store them. Okay. The only way you would ever know how a voter voted for sure is if you only had one voter in that precinct. But that would be with any machine that's out there, right? Any questions on that? So let me just show you. So let's talk about voter errors now. So here I got a ballot, and I voted here, but I overvoted in this race here. Okay, so I've got an overvoted ballot. The system has the ability to reject overvotes, which it has to do by law. It has the ability to reject undervotes. So if you wanted to say, hey, you didn't vote in any of these races, it will tell you which races you did not vote in. Now, not very common. Most voters do have a few undervoted races. They're allowed to do that. But what we can do is we can turn it on by race. So let's say you had a ballot that maybe just had one item that went to the back page. We can flag that and say, hey, you didn't vote the back page. Or if you had just a certain race that you wanted to make sure people knew was there, we can turn it on by actual race or contest. But normally, folks leave undervotes completely off and don't kick back. And then it'll also kick back blank ballots, and you do usually want to turn that on. And the reason we do that is maybe you have somebody that's circling the names and not filling in the box. We can see, okay, you know, they just did it wrong. Or for some reason they pull a highlighter out of their jacket pocket and vote with a highlighter. It's not going to read highlighter. So something like that, it'll just tell you. So this has an overvote on it. I've overvoted the United States representative, so I'm going to put it through. I'm going to put it through backwards and upside down. You can see that it goes through. It's going to read the ballot, and then it's going to kick it back out. It's going to say your ballot may not be properly marked. Okay? United States Representative District 1, too many choices are marked. This contest will not be counted. To make changes, pull the ballot or cast ballot as is. So the voter at this point has two options. They can pull it. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Poll Worker, I need to get a new ballot. And then you would void that ballot and do that process. They would revote, okay? Or, sadly, statistics say that over 75% of voters that are faced with that will just go ahead and do cast ballot as is. And it will count everything but that race that was overvoted, okay? Falls in to the ballot box. Yes?
Does it work the same way for absentees?
Absentees is a little different. So absentees would be centrally counted. Well, we were talking about this. So absentees, well, which part of the process? Your current way you do it, or how it would work in the future?
Yeah, that's
I guess
my
would be the
question,
key.
because my understanding of the current way is if you overvote on an absentee, that the top votes will count, and the bottom one that's an overvote will not count. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
The contest that would be overvoted would not be counted, but the rest of them would be. Is that what you're
Okay,
saying?
well,
What,
my understanding is that if you choose four candidates, if it's choose four candidates,
Right.
but you choose 5 on the absentee
Oh,
ballot,
okay.
that the top 4 are counted, but the bottom one is not.
No, I don't
Is that not
believe,
correct?
I don't believe that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would have to go look, because we don't have it happen very often, because we don't have very many absentee ballots, but I don't believe that race gets counted, because it's overvoted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
How does it count write-in votes? I mean, how does it determine who was written in or?
Yeah, let's talk about that,
Yeah.
Greg.
Can we
So,
answer your question, though? I'm sorry, I know you can't.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
yeah, and I can get into absentee, but I know that there's the current way you do it, and then I know there's a way that you might be doing it, so
Yeah.
we can talk about that further. So, we do have a write-in box right here, right? So you would fill in the box, and you would write in the name, okay? So, we do not have a diverter, and you guys not coming from paper before. What a lot of systems do is if they have a write-in, it actually sends it to a different spot within the ballot box, okay? And it has a diverter that basically switches back and forth and sends it, good ballot goes here, write-in ballot goes to the back, let's just say. So, we do not have a diverter in the system. As I said, it's a completely digital ballot. So, at the end of the night, we actually have a paper printout that will come out from right here, and it will have the signature image of all your write-ins by race. So governor will have all the images that we captured from all the
Like our
ballots. for governor.
DREs do now?
Could be, yes. I'm not sure how they do. Yeah, but probably how they do it now. I can't remember exactly how your DREs do it. That would be
You
my
need an
guess.
actual photograph.
Yeah, it's the actual image clip of this ballot. Yeah, it's this image right there.
Handwriting counts,
Yes,
unfortunately.
yes.
And the one advantage of the system now is if you want to write in, you type it in on a keyboard.
Right.
It's legible.
Right.
It can still be wrong, but it's legible.
Correct. But yeah, handwriting counts. Yeah, they're gonna have to be able to read that or discern something from it for sure. For sure.
Lawrence, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
was making a note, because I want to follow up on Casey's question when I get back to my office, but you were saying that on a write-in, you can print a report, is that what you
Yeah. So at the end of the night, you'll print your totals,
Okay,
and then you also have the option to print the write-in tape, and it will print you a tape that shows you all the write-ins for that day by race. Okay. So what do you have to provide? Remind me what you have to provide at the end of the night as far as write-ins go.
well, actually, right now, we just have a number, so basically our DREs just count how many write-ins there are,
Okay.
and that's it. And then what we do is we print a report then later for, as we talked about, computation that we present to our board of every write-in,
Right.
vote by contest, by precinct. And currently, what we do is we present that to our board, and then they
We
determine
count
if we're
them.
going to count them or not count them, and then they
Okay.
actually tally them on the ones that they have approved.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can see
so-
that would slow us down though with handwriting.
No, so what you would do now, well, it might with handwriting. So what you would do now is you would print that report off of here, but you're really just counting how many write-ins you have. You don't care at the polling place what the names are, correct? You just
Well,
need
our
a,
system can't do it.
right,
so,
you just
yeah.
need a total number of write-ins that I'm gonna be dealing with. Now, at the end of the night, the idea is to get that key or V drive, whatever I did with the extra one, to get this V drive, this needs to get down to the elections office, okay? After you close the polls, you can either break the seal and open this, and the poll workers pull it and they drive this back, or what most of our counties are doing is they just actually close down this system and they bring it back. It's like a little suitcase. And then at the elections office, they break the seal, they pull the V
That would be
drive.
smart because
Okay.
otherwise it could be lost, it could be copied.
Exactly.
You know, it's.
Exactly.
So it sounds like
Exactly.
probably the biggest difference for what we have now, is instead of a nice typed name, it would just be a handwritten name you would have to
Correct.
figure out.
Which could slow down the
Correct.
computation.
Correct.
Yep.
Now, so what you would do to count your count or not count your write-ins, when you would put this V drive into the software that we have, it would count all the votes, give you your official totals, but then it will also give you a file of write-ins. And there on screen, it would give you those digital signature clips of all the write-ins, and then you would adjudicate what you wanted to do with that write-in. Okay. Yes?
I think we've had the problem in the past that, let's say there's 3 offices, there's only 2 people running.
Okay.
So someone tries to write in a second vote for one of the people that's on the ballot.
Right.
Is there any way this system will catch that?
So, it is a vote for 3,
Vote for 3.
but there's only 2 candidates and a write-in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to catch that you did a write-in. So what you're saying is it going to catch?
That's what we catch on computations.
I got you. So you're sitting in front of the computer now, you're going through all the write-ins, you're just looking at the write-in name. You have no idea whether he voted for.
Well, it's a write-in.
I see what you're saying. Well, I guess the key would be, how would y'all count a write-in for somebody that's listed on the ballot?
No.
We don't.
Okay, then you guys would see that name and you'd say, oh, Bud's already on the ballot, he doesn't count.
Right.
Does that make sense? Am I explaining that right?
We don't do
Yeah.
that now.
Yeah, I think it would be the similar process what we could do with that is what we do now. Is
Yeah, that makes
we would know
sense.
who was on the ballot, so we would strike that as counting the write-in.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I think I understand what he's getting at. Let me use a different scenario.
Okay.
Let's say you can vote for 3,
Right.
and so there are 3 boxes to write into,
Correct.
and you write Lawrence all 3 times.
Right.
So now the printout will show 3 separate boxes that say Lawrence, or will it show them as a group, and so now you can tell that someone tried to vote Lawrence 3 times? Does that get to the question?
That's a much better question than
different
mine.
question.
Okay.
You know, I'll have to get back to you on that.
But it is a
I'm-
good question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll have to get back to that. I'm not exactly how that would work.
Well, have you seen the,
Yeah.
if you've seen the images of the write-ins, do you see them where they're grouped in 3
No, it
boxes
would
at a
not.
time,
It
or
would
more?
no. It would not group it by ballot. So it doesn't. It doesn't say. No, it wouldn't group it by ballot. Now there would be 3 in a row,
Yeah.
but you don't know if that's 3 different ballots or whether that's one ballot with 3 names on there. So that's a procedural issue. I'd have to get back to you on that. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I know it's solvable, but I'm not exactly sure whether it's a software issue or a process
It's
issue.
somewhat discernible on what we have now. They use what's called caret, but it's a greater than, less than sign next to it if they've entered it more than once. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
they mark it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We'd have to look. I'd have to look at that. I'm sure there's a way to do it, and I'm sure we've been asked that problem. I just
Because it's
I don't
in
know.
a write-in contest only. That's important.
right. No, I could see that.
And one nice thing is you with Lancaster that may have solved some of these issues.
Sure. Oh, definitely.
So.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm trying to be cognizant of time. Let's quickly talk about the touch writer. So this is the ADA device, okay? So this is for anybody that cannot use pen and paper, right? They may have sight issues. They may not be able to read, so they need the ballot read back to them for whatever reason, okay? They may have, can't hold a pen correctly. So this is, you guys are used to a DRE. This is what they call a ballot marking device. And it's really kind of a hybrid. You are going to vote on the touch screen, and it's going to actually print out a paper ballot, okay? So voter comes in, it's been determined they need to use this system. The poll worker is going to walk with them over to the system, and they are going to get the process started for the voter, okay? Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
So there's a button on the back that they're going to hit, and it's going to make them enter in their poll worker code, okay? So nobody can just access this at any time. Poll worker's doing this. Whoops. They're going to enter in their code. What did I not do that right? There we go.
That's a hard push.
Yeah, so these are what we call resistive touchscreens. Your phone that you have is kind of heat sensitive, right? Where you can almost hover your finger over it and push. So these are called 5-wire resistive, where you actually have to kind of make a push, and that's really to keep from those kind of voting errors where they're kind of just touching the screen, right? So you can, if you were on your phone, it would be going absolutely crazy right now, right? So we want it to where you actually have to push the button a little bit. And most everybody has gone to 5-wire resistive. Your current ones are what we call 3-wire. 5-wire has to be calibrated a whole lot less, which is nice. It's just kind of the new technology for touchscreens, if you will, that's not your phone type. So enter in their password. Now they need to pick the precinct or the ballot style that the voter would be voting, okay? So for you guys, everything's precinct based. So maybe in a primary, you're only gonna have to choose between 101R and 101D. If it's not a primary, you're probably only gonna have one ballot up here, okay? We're gonna pick our precinct, we're gonna hit OK, and then we're gonna hit print code. So this is kind of like how you guys create a PEB. You do that and you say precinct 101, and your PEBs connect. I don't know what you use, a computer, but it puts it on the PEB, and then you walk that to the system, and that puts it on there, right? What we've done is just used an access code to do that, so that there's no real peripheral that someone can walk off with or damage or break. Okay, so now we're just going to enter, the poll worker would still do this. They're going to enter their code 44954, and then they're going to be into the voting process here. Again, voting. So it is a touch screen. You vote just by touching the thing, moving to the next ballot. All right. So obviously, though, if you can't use pen and paper, you're probably not going to be able to use the touchscreen option, right? So headphones are there. It will read you the ballot, and then what you do, excuse me here, is you actually use this accessibility device. It can sit in your lap if you're in a wheelchair, or it could just stand right here if you're standing. But what you do is you move through the ballot by using this wheel. You remember the wheel from our older system. Yes. And then you use the select button. You can see this blue bar. I don't know if you guys can see that yet, but blue bar goes through the ballot. You hit select, and you move through the ballot that way. Okay? So very easy process. I don't know. Some of the things you can do with it, you can make the screen larger. I think I need to calibrate this. So you can make the screen larger. You can increase the speed of the ballot to where it reads the ballot faster for the voter. Lots of folks that don't have sight actually hear at a faster rate than we do. So those are some of the options that you could change. We're going to review our choices at the end. Now, with you guys, you would hit cast ballot at this point, right? Once they've voted and they've seen the screen, we're now going to hit print. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to print that ballot, okay, with all the vote choices. So this may take a second to warm up because it hasn't been using, but this is kind of like a cooking show. This is what your ballot would look like. One of the differences that we have is we actually print a full ballot, okay? So this looks exactly like the ballot that a voter would get, all right? It's not a summary. A couple reasons for that. One, in a recount, voters really like to have their actual ballot recounted, not a summary of the ballot. And two, as you guys might know, you may only get 1 or 2 voters using the ADA features, right? Especially on paper. So if you were to put that in the ballot box and it looks different than everyone else's ballot, you would know immediately at the end of the night when you collect those ballots how that person voted. Okay, so those are the reasons why we do that. But you can see the vote choices are filled in. Here's the ballot that I just did. Vote choices are filled in. Now, you take that piece of paper and you run it through the scanner, okay? So, expensive pen, ballot marking device. The really nice thing about it, especially for you guys coming from the DRE world, at the end of the night, all votes are harvested onto one machine, okay? So you only close the polls on this machine here. You can close the polls here, but no votes are ever stored, no votes are ever cast on this, so you're really just shutting the system down, okay? Does that make sense? So, at the end of the night, your big responsibility is this key, the V drive in here, to get that down to the elections office. Yes?
Some people, especially elderly, have severe arthritis,
Right?
and seriously, that was hard to push. Is there a sensitivity adjustment on that?
You know what? I do need to calibrate it. I've shipped these all over, so I should have tested a little bit better and run the calibration on it just so it would be better. But no, there's really not a sensitivity. You don't have to push really that hard. I was pushing hard just to make sure it went through, but it's not that hard of a push. And you guys can try it when you come up and see about that. But if they have arthritis, they're welcome to use this as well to move through the ballot. And you could use a knuckle to vote with it or however you want.
How about a
to.
stylus?
Stylus would be fine, yeah. Yeah. We try to discourage people using pen,
Right.
just because it could scratch the screen and nobody needs a scratch screen.
Yep. I think stylus would be.
Right, right. So that's kind of the quick run through. I'm trying to keep you guys at an hour for those that need to get out. I know this is a lot of information. It's a big change for what you guys. I guess that's probably the hazard of going first. You can look at me and go, man, this is not what I was thinking. But, you know, the greatness of paper is its cost. It's very cost effective. But the real greatness of paper now is that is where the voting public has the most confidence. They are really requiring that paper backup. And with paper, with the pure paper-based system like I'm showing you today, this is the actual ballot that they vote on election day, and it's the actual ballot you're going to be recounting in a recount situation. Yes?
Cost per ballot to print.
So you're probably looking somewhere in the range between 23 and 33 cents a ballot. And that depends on, we can do 8.5 by 11, we can do 8.5 by 14, we can do 8.5 by 17, and we can do 8.5 by 20. So depending on, you know, what size your ballot is, that is really what your cost differences will be.
Both sides.
Both sides, yeah, correct.
So 8.5 by 20 would be 40 inches of voting.
Correct, correct. Yeah, it's a lot of voting space. And you can see here, we've got a 3-column. We can do 1 column and make it really large. We can do 2 column, we can do 3 column, we can even go to 4 column. So we can design the ballot in a lot of different ways to make it easily readable, to where it has natural breaks from federal races to state races to local races. There's lots of things you can do with how you create your ballot, which is really nice with a paper ballot system. So when you're doing elections by precinct, that is really the easiest way for a paper system. So, you know, you do have pre-printing that's going to go on. Just to let you know, we have a lot of customers that print a lot of their ballots in-house. So as I said before, with digital technology, you can buy high-speed printers now that can print this ballot in-house. You do not have to send it out to a print shop, okay? A lot of folks still do. But Hamilton County in Ohio, which is Cincinnati, they print all of their absentees in-house, and they print over 100,000 absentees for presidential elections. So the capability to be able to print your own ballots is now there. It wasn't there 10 years ago when we had those ballots that had all those timing marks, but with digital printing now, you guys have a lot more control over how you want to print those ballots. We also have ballot on demand, which would be really more effective for you if you went to a early voting type situation where a voter would come in. If you're at your early voting location, a voter would come in, they would check in and they say, okay, I'm for precinct 202. And you would be, this is actually what this is, and we'll leave that out for now for time. But it basically works like this. We would pull up the ballot style and it would print you a blank ballot and they could go vote. The next person comes in is from precinct 404. You can print their ballot on demand. So with digital printing, it now gives you that option of ballot on demand. And I never would say you could use ballot on demand with a non-optical scan system. With digital printing, it really gives you ability to do that now. Yes?
Can I verify, 35 pounds, 15-year life expectancy?
So this is, this unit here is 28 pounds, and this, when it's folded down, is 27 pounds. Life expectancy, we're looking between 15 and 20 years.
I'm sorry, 15 to 20, that you said?
Yes, 15 to 20. And to be honest, that's really predicated on the software around it, not how long we think the actual voting device will last, if that makes sense. So I'd be more than happy to stay and talk longer with